Oh yeah, boys and girls, we're back with another day, another stream. No big drama today. I know, you're big sad. You're crying into your pillows. You're gooning in your dreams. You're mad that King Jiffy Coats can't cover drama 24/7, 8 days a week. What is going on? Actually, give me a second. And don't come back. Silly cum falcons, always trying to steal my wallet. Oh man, I had to fight off a herd of cum falcons real quick. It's very disturbing when you're just chilling, living your day, and a massive herd of cum falcons come after your entire livelihood. To be honest, there's nothing worse than just trying to have a normal, authentic day of fun and joy, and all of a sudden a herd of cum falcons comes in just, and then you're just sitting there hitting them with some, bap, 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 and your hands is just glazed like a donut. But you know that you're fighting them off with everything you have because you have to protect your wife. You got to protect your children. You can't let the cum falcons consume them. What is this? A normal day in the neighborhood? What are we? What is it? A typical day in the neighborhood. The neighborhood. The neighborhood. How would you like to be, my neighbor? Yeah, a little bit of what's that jabroni's name? I can't remember. I remember Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, he knew how to fight a cum falcon. Nobody understood him the way that I understood him. Dude could punch a cum falcon 87 miles. 87 miles is the normal ability that he maintained while punching cum falcons. I have to be real. I have to be real with you. I have to appease to you on a way that has never been seen before. In an idea that has not been professed to the masses, that Mr. Rogers not only was really beneficial for children, but he also could knock out a cum falcon like you wouldn't fucking believe. Anyways, boys and girls, I have one that I'm going to start off with right here. It's called Why Pac-Man is Secretly the First Survival Horror. Now, I saw my friend, sort of. We are friends, I think. Until he decides that I am way too controversial, and then we can be friends in the back scenes, but in the main scenes, he's gonna be like, ewy pooey, King Jiffy's bad. Which is absolutely fine with me. I don't expect anybody to condone my degeneracy, to be honest. I am a gooner online. That is what I do. But he made this video, Why Pac-Man is Secretly a Survival Horror. His name is Midnight Medium. Dude makes incredible content. Incredible content. He lives in that kind of slower talking retrospective world. It's funny because I make a Friday video that I consider a retrospective, and I just kind of insanely just yeet my voice into the atmosphere and say a bunch of abhorrent crap. When you look at these other retrospective guys, they're giving you like hard details and love, and they're like relaying the beauty of their topic to you. It's these grand ideas, and I'm like, dude, did you see that this guy was like rubbing his own tank wagons into Gypsy Rose's mouth? And it's a different kind of world. I love these guys, though. I think that he's probably one of my favorite retrospective guys, so definitely go give him some love if you get a chance. I've been on a podcast with him. He is one of the most beneficial people I've met on YouTube who's helped me out. He's an incredible guy. Well, let's get into it. Why Pac-Man is secretly the first survival horror. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Could you imagine just laying down some pipe to the Pac-Man thing? Just whop, 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 whop. Wow! You know what I mean? Right as you blast it, just wow! And you actually spin off, so it kind of like flails around like those old school, yard sprinklers. That'd be sick, dude.
That's what I'm talking about. Even if you've never touched an arcade cabinet, you'd be hard-pressed not to recognize who this little yellow concave circle is. Pac-Man is one of the most instantly recognizable characters in pop culture history, and that's because creator Toru Iwatani's 1980 smash hit wasn't just charming and fun, but also incredibly innovative. Pac-Man was the first multicolored arcade game, the first game with cutscenes, and also the first arcade game to ever score a large female audience, and it capitalized on this.
Dude, bro knew how to pull some punani, dog. He was like, all you other gamers out there, you only want to market to men? I want that girl. I want people with titties playing my game, dog. I want to see some flapperjacks, dude. I've been watching some old anime. They got some flippity floppities that just bounce together and boing, boing, boing. That's who I want playing my game, dog. And he did it. He achieved his dream.
Increased market share to the tune of $14 billion in revenue to date. But while Pac-Man undeniably propelled gaming into the mainstream, it's rarely given credit for what I think is its most subtle but perhaps most interesting influence. That is, laying the groundwork for the survival horror genre.
What are you talking about?
Okay, now I know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I see. This is another reason why I like Midnight Medium's videos. I'm gonna be real. He puts enough of his personality in there to where it's fun, it's enjoyable. There is so many people in this niche that just kind of read off their stupid little like facts and logic. They Ben Shapiro it. You see, my wife's pussy cannot get wet, and when Pac-Man was first created. Shut up. Shut up. That is not me threatening violence on Ben Shapiro. It is usually how I get into some of these reviews, and I end up hearing just like the regaling of stuff, and it puts me to sleep. I like that he inserts his little jokes here and there. It's never over the top. It's not all jokes like me, but I do appreciate it.
There's no way I'm going to claim that the colorful, playful, and silly Pac-Man could possibly be related to Alone in the Dark, or Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Dino Crisis, Parasite Eve, and all the rest. GTFO, you've lost the plot, bro.
No thanks, bro.
Okay, hear me out. First of all, what's not horrific about a naked, starving person having to stumble around in the dark to escape evil spirits in a never-ending set of mazes until they've died too many times to continue on?
Could you really be in this town?
My pal and patron member Melancholy Geek actually played Pac-Man when it first came out, and he arrived at a similar conclusion.
Pac-Man was the very first video game I ever played, back in the early 80s on the Atari 2600.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, dude. The Atari Pac-Man looked retarded as fuck. Dude, he's just... He's just like absolutely goon energy. Do you see what I'm seeing on screen here? Do you see the type of AIDS that is being dripped in our mouse right there? I would have looked at... The original Atari games were atrocious looking. I'm sorry.
Back then, I didn't think of it as a horror game. Then again, I'm pretty sure at the tender age of 6, I wasn't aware of the concept that is horror in the first place. Or horrible ports, for that matter. Looking back now and knowing Namco's original game, I see things very differently. Pac-Man is terrifying. I mean, you're thrown into a labyrinth, hunted by ghosts, which, given the game's Japanese origin, is about as horrifying as it gets. And it's not just generic ghosts either. They have names. They have personalities, and your only way to fight them is by using a very limited resource that allows you to temporarily banish them until they return again, set out to kill you. Drop the bird's eye view, and no one will doubt that's some horror premise right there.
Well, that may sound a bit like overstatement, but I can't help but think of how Shinji Mikami's initial pitch for Resident Evil took place.
Dude, when that head turns around, tell me you're not thinking about picking it up and using it as a flesh puppet. You're just like, you know, I've used a fleshlight, but I've never used a severed head, dog. I've never used a severed head. That's the true gooning experience. Dude, what am I talking about? What am I on? I'm over here drinking Coca-Cola, and you'd think that it was the original 1800 version with some cocaine.
In a mansion haunted by spirits, because he couldn't think of anything scarier than evil spirits. Pac-Man's nothing but evil spirits. Now, of course, I'm not saying that Pac-Man is horror simply because it's dark and uses ghosts and you run away a lot. Context is key. Creator Toru Iwatani just wanted to make a wacky game about eating, and he was inspired by some very not scary properties like the manga Obaki no Otaro, Casper the Friendly Ghost, and even Popeye the Sailor eating spinach to power himself up.
Fun fact, I'm gonna introduce some like actual lore knowledge on you. So, do you know where anime comes from? Well, this is a rhetorical question because I'm live and you can't answer, you stupid idiots. Well, back when we dropped a couple of blam blams on Japan, there was and we won the war, we kind of infiltrated Japan, and a lot of our culture was brought over, especially considering a lot of the art and stuff was very imperialistic propaganda. So, no more imperialistic propaganda was allowed. Propaganda was done. It was like, okay, you guys can make whatever you want, but yeah, no more propaganda, because you guys got a little wacky and wild with your sneak attacks on Pearl Harbor. So they had a lot of cartoons and stuff, but you know what cartoons they were watching? They were watching Popeye, they were watching Casper the Friendly Ghost, they were watching like all of these really old school cartoons from like the 40s and 50s, and because of that, they started utilizing art that they had used in the past, combined with like the Looney Toony rubber band arms that you see in the type of stuff like Popeye. If you go back to really old anime, it looks very characteristically like 50s cartoons in the US because they were emulating that with a slight twist on it. Boom, we nuked anime into existence. You're welcome.
It's to Iwatani's credit, then, that he can take normally horrific stock elements and make them disarmingly approachable. But it's hard to argue that these scarier inclinations of these elements aren't lingering just below the surface, as most fan remakes ratchet up the horror, and even the Pac-Man episode in Amazon's Secret Level series turns the cute eating game into existential, From Software-esque body horror. Pac-Man is just
Dude, that episode is based. Now, not all of the episodes from whatever the show is, I can't remember, Secret Level. It's called Secret Level. It's called the Secret Level for a reason, because the level's so secret. But that Secret Level episode, this is one of the better ones, and it was really a thinker. You had to ponder and understand what was going on, and it had this like over-the-top feeling and vibe, and everything about it I loved. Now, not all of them I loved. The first episode dealing with like Dungeons and Dragons, that is AIDS, it sucks, it's boring, Big L, take no W's, go to sleep in the river, you little goon monster, I don't enjoy you, I don't like you, you sucked. Yeah, that first episode was trash. Back when I was making like TV and movie reviews, I was going to do an episode of my TV and movie reviews on each one of the Secret Level things, but they weren't getting views, so I just stopped caring. But yeah, dude, mad trash, but the Pac-Man one is mad gold.
asking to be returned into a full-fledged horror game, and as we'll learn later, it kinda was.
Advertisement? Oh no, but yeah, no, I really like some of the secret stuff. I liked the Outer Worlds one a lot. I think the Outer Worlds one encapsulated the feel and the vibe of what the Outer Worlds was and truly is, and the fun that can be had in the game. And I think a lot of people miss that in the Outer Worlds, so the Outer Worlds one is worth watching. I haven't watched any of the other ones yet. I've only watched those 3, but I'll get to it. Don't come at me. Don't come on me. I will eventually watch them.
Perspective that many people subscribe. Horror. Pac-Man is just asking to be returned into a full-fledged horror game, and as we'll learn later, it kinda was. Now, admittedly, it's not a perspective that many people subscribe to, nor has it been taken very seriously in the 40-plus years of Pac-Man's existence. All I found in my research was a tongue-in-cheek subreddit post, an equally unserious article, and one whole YouTube video by Pondering Pixels. But Pondering Pixels actually reminded me of a passage I just read in John Romero's autobiography, Doom Guy: Life in First.
I wonder if in his autobiography he talks about how shitty Daikatana was and how it was the biggest mistake of his life, and how he hasn't made anything of like substantial. Like he's made like Signal or Sigil or whatever, and it's fine. I mean they're good Doom mods, but come on, dude. He hasn't made anything since then because he sat around fucking around, and then he found out because he over-released an overpriced game and it hurt his studio that he was at. I know I hold a lot of resentment against John Romero because I played Daikatana and I should have never spent money on that pile of garbage.
Person. In Chapter 5 of this book, Romero reveals how Pac-Man's innovation revolutionized his perspective on game design for one particular reason.
Asteroids and Battlezone were about shooting and blowing stuff up. It was all kill or be killed. It seemed like most new games
somebody's gonna bring up Daikatana? Ooh.
were derivative of one or the other. This was a different vibe. It was more task-oriented. You had to gather dots, and survival-oriented. You ran away or you died.
Survival, you say?
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Okay, now we're cooking with gas.
Cooking with gas.
Cooking with
Gas.
Could Pac-Man be a survival horror forefather after all? Well,
Yes, yes. The answer is yes. Come on, dude. Well, what are we coming on my mouth and then me saying I don't like it? This is obviously it's yes.
let's find out. And just so you don't think I'm playing word games to suit my confirmation bias, let's actually pin down what survival horror even is and whether Pac-Man measures up to that definition. Now, many people have had many good answers for this, but we'll use the one that even noted stickler under the Mayo likes. The one found in Mild Conviction's video called What is Survival Horror? The Genre's History and Defining Characteristics.
What is survival horror? The former tends to focus on vulnerability, isolation, puzzle solving, and running away from enemies just as much as, if not more than, directly engaging them. In fact, sometimes engaging is simply not even an option. One is more investigative and promotes the avoidance and participation of combat either in equal measure or with a stronger lean towards avoidance. Survival means choice. Decisions must be made to ensure you stay.
I'm gonna be real. There's a reason why a lot of times I say that I don't like survival horror, but I like horror. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't understand when I'm like, well, I don't like this game. They're like, oh, you don't like horror. I'm like, no, I just didn't. I don't enjoy survival horror. I don't like the crafting. I don't like this weird little fucking inventory management at the forefront. And a lot of times too, what it boils down to is it's like, well, you haven't played the white ones, and that's fair in some regard. I do like the first Last of Us, and I like what was that? The Resident Evil 2 remake, and I haven't played any Resident Evil 4, but the Resident Evil 2 remake I really like. Resident Evil Village, oh, so good. But I didn't play that like I bought the DLC that made me basically God, so I just ran through it like it was an FPS. So I'm gonna be like, that one doesn't really count. It's just one of those things. Like if you ever think that I'm gonna be playing Resident Evil, I have a video on my channel about Resident Evil 1 being terrible because it makes me nauseous. It's just personally not for me.
Stay alive and make progress. True survival comes from a combination of three other things working in tandem: level design, enemy placement, and rewards.
Okay, so how does Pac-Man fit into this definition, if at all?
I don't know what that picture was that he used that had the eye there, but you'll have to let me know, Midnight Medium, because I really liked what you got there. I mean, I really like what's going on screen right now because I like ass and cheek, but I want to know what that creepy eye was from.
For starters, Pac-Man's not a traditional puzzle game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not too much of a stretch to say that the intentional maze-like structure and configuration of enemies constitutes a bit of a puzzle or a brain teaser.
That is a puzzle, though. I mean, in a sense, it is a puzzle game because here's the thing, almost every single tool, yes, I am a tool. A tool, is that the name of the guy? Is it Tool? Is that the... Anyways, like if Tool's the name, like what is it from? Or am I a tool? There's multiple reasons why. Ligma, what the hold on. We're getting into some deep diving here. What the fuck is Lycra? What are we talking about here? Oh no, I forgot a U. Lyric. Tool. What? I'm so confused. The band, sweetie. It's a band. Okay. You're branching out into some wild stuff. I like where you're at. Pulling inspiration from everywhere. Oh, they do have some. Okay, Tool. Okay. I see what we're doing here. They have some creepy artwork right here. This is lyrics from the song Tool. Oh, okay, I know what we're doing here. I like that you pulled inspiration from something like that, though. I do that in every once in a while. I'll pull random inspiration out of nowhere, and I'll throw it in there because I think it looks cool. I kind of did that a little bit with my latest video, or not my latest. When this comes out, it'll be like a gajillion years ago. But my a medieval video, I pulled inspiration from your like just random shit, and I was like, yeah, berserk. Anyways, let's get back to it. Let's skibbity toilet it. Dated
in and of itself, and it requires tighter strategy as the game gets increasingly more difficult. As for Pac-Man himself, he's alone and highly vulnerable, like most survival horror protagonists are. The ghost AIs alternate between different levels of pursuit and scatter patterns, but transform into full pursuit mode once you've eaten about 20 dots or so. And you do have the choice of going into the warp tunnels on either side of the map to slow down any ghost who pursue you, though. And if you're able to pick up an Energizer pill to go on the offensive and start eating the ghosts, it's only for a very short amount of time, because even if you eat the ghost...
We used to joke when I was a kid, my buddy's dad, his office had a Pac-Man machine, and we used to joke that those pills were Viagra and you were fucking the ghosts. Just fun fact. Fun off the dome little recount of history.
They travel back to the center of the maze to regenerate, and eventually they resume their normal patrols, so you're never completely rid of them. As Melancholy Geek reminded us earlier, you've got the classic survival horror staples of limited resources to slow or fight back against the ghosts, but this only works so well and for so long, and it's dependent on how smartly you chose to activate these features to make the most of them. Pac-Man has to make educated guesses using the means available to him and hope for the best, much like later survival horror games. But Mild Conviction also reminds us that exploration in survival horror is optional, but rewards the most dedicated.
Thus, it's common for a good portion of a game's map to be optionally accessible. With this type of structure, choice is embedded directly into the world.
Most survival horror games have you collecting health, ammo, and items like Signalis' stun batons that let you have impermanent ways to rebuff enemies for a time.
By the way, that picture he showed is from the game Signalis, and I really wanted to play that, but I know that it's just not possible for me, or I will be feeling like I need a vomit bag and I have migraine pills at the ready. I hate Resident Evil cameras. I know you've already heard that, but I'm just reminding you, if you're one of the people watching this, you're like, why haven't you played Signalis? You know why, you stupid cucks.
Not unlike how Pac-Man can slow or temporarily kill ghosts. In most survival horror games, you're asked to weigh the risk of expending your resources now or possibly banking them in case you need them that much more later on. Maybe you need to pull off a risky maneuver and try for a high-risk, high-reward kind of situation so that you're not put in a bad spot and left without meaningful choice later on. Now, you could say that Pac-Man's pill collection does induce a lot of tension as each dot eaten gets you closer to the AI upgrading itself and making it harder and harder to escape with victory. There's the constant threat of failure and no real agency that you have other than which route you pick to escape the ghosts. But Pac-Man's map is always fully visible, and you're required to pick up all the dots to win, so in essence your exploration is forced. You're not really engaging the risk-reward triage of most survival horror and having to make decisions based on your best guess for the moment and your hope that it will pay off in the end, which is part of the fun, part of the genre's appeal. So Pac-Man's really playing alongside survival horror here, and it isn't quite living up to the sense of choice and emergent gameplay that survival horror encourages. But while it may seem counterintuitive to think of Pac-Man as a survival horror game, Pac-Man does feature a lone, disempowered protagonist. The maps are kind of set up like puzzles, if we're being technically correct.
Technically correct. The best kind of correct.
You normally practice avoiding enemies over engaging them. Your only means of fighting back is temporary and limited, and there's a general sense of fear and tension throughout. There's a lot here that resembles the spirit and some of the mechanics of what we see in later Resident Evils and such. Melancholy Geek really drives this point home.
That leads me to the true psychological horror that is Pac-Man. Ultimate futility. It's
we put in the screaming leftist chick. Let's go. I love it.
with the maze's fake exits that just loop you right back into your hellish prison. The ghosts in the
I love old memes. There's a YouTuber that I've worked with in the past called Rev Plays Games, and he'll throw in some of like the old dated references, and every time I get bricked the fuck up. And I mean the screaming the chick was like so overused, and now you rarely see her, so whenever I see her I get a little bit happy.
And are invincible. The best possible outcome for the player is to clear the maze, eat every pallet, only to, in classic Sisyphean fashion, have to start all over again. It's a cycle that repeats on and on, with your only faint hope being to maybe, just maybe, reach the aptly named kill screen, just to see your whole reality dissolve before your eyes. Don't be fooled by the bright colors, the funny names, and cute waka waka sounds. Strip all that away, and you'll see what I see. Pac-Man's messed up.
Pac-Man's fully retarded. Listen, you might not know this, but I've been waiting to do this voice this entire video because we're doing some conspiracy theory stuff here. But I'm gonna let you know, Pac-Man's kind of retarded guy. Yeah, you get a little bit of waka waka, but he's afraid. What he thinks the globalist is gonna come down and suck upon his asshole.
You're welcome for the Alex Jones. Anytime, any day, I can do that voice. It's honestly what helps this video progress to the next section.
But if you've been shown all these similarities and Melancholy's rich baritone somehow doesn't convince you of the truth of the matter, that Pac-Man is at least survival horror adjacent,
Inconceivable.
then let's get to the real proof in the pudding, which is how many formative titles in survival horror's history actually borrowed from Pac-Man's playbook. Now, there are a ton of Pac-Man clones that are just copyright infringement bait, adding almost nothing but new colors and sound effects to the very basic Pac-Man loop of pellet eating inside a maze while being chased by enemies. But things started to change even as soon as 1981, when Akira Takaguchi and Masakuni Mitsuhashi created the crossover we didn't know we needed between Pac-Man and Alien called Uchu Jisosen Nostromo.
Boom! Boom! Now, I'm gonna give you a little bit of pretext here. One of the reasons why I watched this video, a little bit of egomaniac here, a little bit of self-importance. When he was researching for this video, I might have made a suggestion about this game. Now, I'm not saying he saw that and was like, this is the guy who gave it to me.
But back to Alex Jones' voice. Listen here. I think that maybe King Jeffy Coates is burning here. He's cooking up something really impressive. You know, he doesn't always turn the freaking frogs gay, but he knows how to turn a frog gayer than anybody else.
And I'm just saying, I might have had a little bit of influence. He did a lot more investigating on that, but I might have slipped something under his door late at night, a little hotel room key to come visit me later, if you know what I mean.
Or Space Vader Nostromo, or Nostromo as we'll call it from here on out. Nostromo was released only in Japan, so
I know this is a different game, but there is an Alien suggestion I think coming up, because there is an Alien, so I got a little excited and over-tooted my horn here, so we're gonna be honest.
pretty hard to find any copies of. Most gameplay you see online is a port of some variety, with slightly different colors for instance. But if you wanted a working prototype for how Alien Isolation could work, or a good example of how Pac-Man was already influencing other burgeoning genres, look no further. Nostromo is widely looked on as one of the very first survival horror games ever made, if not the first. And not only that, it is a deft adaptation of Pac-Man's mechanics to the needs of the survival horror genre, such as it was. Naturally, you play as Ripley, and you start out in a little red-colored nook. From there, you enter a simple area with 8 storage containers. Within them, they have various items that resemble playing card suites, like diamonds, clubs, hearts, and spades. You have to shoot out the walls of these containers.
Dude, I think it's so funny that I made a suggestion that he was using, and I thought it was going to go in a completely different place. There is a Pac-Man ripoff that is Alien, and I told Midnight Medium about this when he was researching this video. So I think, jumped the gun here. I got so excited for something that has nothing to do with anything. I over-tooted my horn so hard. Dude, I fucking jizzed down the hallway of nothing is what just happened.
Containers and collect 4 of each suite to beat the level. But you have to fight the 300-second timer and also avoid the alien who's roaming the halls to do so. You can return to the red starting area as a safe zone in hopes the alien will pass you by if it's gotten too close, or you can hide in one of the storage containers once you've shot open the wall and gone inside for a bit. It's a pretty simple and sweet adaptation of Pac-Man's item collection and the whole avoidance of an unkillable enemy in a maze.
Oh, it's coming up, so I'm not that retarded.
I mean, I'm kind of retarded.
But I know that I'm retarded, but I'm glad to know that it's coming up.
Structure, but with a much less frantic and deliberate pace put to it. Now, judging by this design and how later levels would have the alien disappearing and reappearing at will, I can really see how this would have been a pretty scary game for the early 80s. Not only that, but it's a great proof that Pac-Man can have its elements effectively modulated into a much more deliberately tense and scary, horrific experience. Nostromo also stands out in great contrast to the actual Alien adaptation that came out for...
I fucking jumped the gun early every fucking time, dude. You were right. If I would have waited 2 more seconds, I would have been proved so fucking right. I would have been proved so right. My whole rant would have needed a second rant, and then a rant on top of that. Dude, we have a gangbang of rants here that led up to nothing other than me looking absolutely retarded. And I'm happy for it. You're here for the chaos. You enjoy the chaos. You love me. You need me. But yeah, dude. This was the subtle hit I dropped. Funny thing about this, I am gonna put a little context behind this. When I told him about this, he messaged me back with something. He was like, Alien, blah, blah, blah. And I had no fucking idea what he was talking about. It was like Alien something or other. And I looked it up. It was a board game from the fucking 80s. And I was like, how the fuck do you know about this random board game, but you don't know about the Alien Pac-Man clone? What, like Midnight Medium is living on a moon somewhere where he owns this board game of aliens. And he just like only knew about that from the 80s. It was a wonderful conversation that I didn't know I was going to have that afternoon, morning, evening. I don't know when I had a conversation, but it happened.
For the Atari 2600 a year later in 1982, which is about the closest thing to a rip-off or a Ripley-off as you can imagine, all done to cash in on both Pac-Man and
Mid-joke, Midderson joke, but also I love a good pun. I like that you did it. Ripley off. We're drumming and cymbaling. That was you got to take your shots, bro. You got to take your shots, and I appreciate that you did. Midnight Medium.
Alien hype.
You know, Burke, I don't know which species is worse. You don't see them fucking each other over for a goddamn percentage.
This game only gets credit here for changing the sprites a little bit because it is dead-ass just Pac-Man by any other name. But it is funny to see another game trying to meld Pac-Man and Alien into one thing, and while this game doesn't do anything new or really anything well, it at least compounded the cultural signaling that Pac-Man would be bleeding into scarier fare soon enough. Case in point is 1982's Haunted House by James Andresen for the Atari 2600. Haunted House is often said to be one of the very first survival horror games, and not just for its atmosphere, but its mechanics. In Haunted House, you control a pair of eyes as you traverse a top-down map of 24 rooms across 4 floors that are teeming with spiders and bats and a ghost. To win, you had to find all the pieces of an urn, but you could only pick up these urn pieces if you had first lit a match, which was symbolized by the edges of the map turning yellow. You'd still have to risk running into enemies because all items are in these corner pockets of the rooms, and only the first of 9 difficulty levels even showed you the surrounding room walls unless you lit a match. You could only carry one inventory item at a time, not counting the matches, which means that you'd have to put down that urn that you were assembling if you, for instance, wanted to pick up the scepter, which made you invisible to all enemies, or if you wanted to pick up the master key, which was hidden in later levels and was required to be found in stages 3 through 9.
Not gonna lie, whenever I see like footage from this game or a lot of the games from this era, I just think, God, they had some ass games back in the day. I remember my dad was like, yeah, dude, I used to be a gamer, dude. I used to play what's the worm one? Snake. I used to be really good at Snake, and I looked up what Snake was, and I'm like, dear God, you didn't play video games, you played AIDS. So that's what you played. You were playing around with AIDS, and you were just having so much fun with it. You were just sucking it down, guys. This is like, look how far we've come, boys and girls. This is what games used to be. Blocks and eyes. That's all you got.
To progress through all those locked doors. You also only had 9 lives to win the game. The spiders were fairly slow, but the bats were much faster and could track the player a lot better. The most fearsome of all, though, was the ghost of Mr. Graves, the house's old owner, who chased you very quickly and could pass through walls in its relentless pursuit of you. So, Haunted House features a disempowered cartoon avatar, requires avoiding enemies and backtracking to pick up items, and only has limited means of escaping or rebuffing enemies, all done in a dark labyrinth. Sounds a bit Pac-Man, wouldn't you say?
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Or more accurately, it sounds like Pac-Man slowed down and stretched out yet again to fit the survival horror format that becomes so recognizable in entries like 1989's Project Firestart and Sweet Home, and on into the Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil games of the 90s. But do all these similarities and its influences on games that are considered, survival horror mainstays therefore make Pac-Man a survival horror game? And if so, was it one of, if not the first survival horror game? Well, let's check the tape. Now, as we said earlier, Pac-Man was by no means drafted up to be scary. Sure, it was dark, and it had ghosts that pursued you relentlessly, but its Waka Waka was endlessly lighthearted, as were its comedic cutscenes. So any horror you felt was likely quite particular to your sensibilities, as it was for young melancholy geek.
Pac-Man is terrifying.
Ah!
That said, it's undeniable that Pac-Man was intentionally subverting common horror tropes. And as for its gameplay, it's far more in line with modern survival horror mechanically, technically speaking, than we're often led to believe. Pac-Man himself is isolated and disempowered, a must for a survival horror protagonist, and the game features classic horror elements like dark environments and being chased by ghosts, which, when you think about it, has a much scarier connotation in Japan where this game was created, and as Melancholy Geek pointed out in the Secret Level episode harped on, there's quite a sense of existential dread in the plight of this globular glutton, as he traverses an almost never-ending set of mazes, escaping the bad guy just to respawn and have to do it all over again, but this time with feeling. And while Pac-Man had no official puzzles, its levels and enemy designs and interactions are set up much like a brain teaser or a puzzle that you need to solve in order to win, especially so...
Yeah, I was going to say this earlier on, the whole game of Pac-Man would be almost... I feel like if you were playing a game, right? You were playing a modern game, and you had... Good example of this, good example of this, is when you play the game Terminator Resistance. Terminator Resistance is the kind of the most modern... It's probably the best Terminator game, if we're going to be honest. But when you unlock doors, you play a version of Frogger, and it's kind of a puzzle that you play in the game. It's considered a puzzle. So I see that the entire game of Pac-Man is a puzzle. It's a puzzle game. In the fact that if this was in any other game and wasn't Pac-Man and they had something simple or similar, it would be called a puzzle. Boom! I just solved the Rubik's Cube.
You realize how predictable it can be. Levels require careful playing to get through unscathed, and they conceivably require a lot of backtracking to get all the pills, backtracking being often lauded as a survival horror staple because it causes you to...
Bro, she was a baddie. Let's be honest, that game instantly gets more credits in my appeal because it has a big bama jamma boobies.
Come to terms with what you left behind on your first run. And if you'll recall, John Romero said that
it was more task-oriented. You had to gather dots, and survival-oriented. You ran away.
Thank you. I just thought of a counteraction to that point, though, Midnight Medium, because there's some people like, well, I don't call that a puzzle, I call that a mini game. And I'm like, well, do you have to solve it to get into the thing? That is a fucking puzzle. Now we're getting schizo, Jeffrey, where I'm thinking about the potential arguments against my own retardation. But here's the deal, guys. I don't care. I'm winning. I do whatever I want. I am ultimate god. I'm over here with John Romero, and we're braiding each other's hair, and then I rip away and say, "You may die, Katana. I remember I don't like you."
Or you died.
The likes of which he'd never seen before. Choice about how to solve your disempowerment is scarce in Pac-Man, but there is some agency for you, like whether you want to try your luck at avoiding the increasingly difficult to avoid ghosts, or whether you'd like to fight back for a limited time by eating an Energizer pill. Also worth noting that even if you manage to eat a ghost, they return to the center of the maze to respawn, and much like Crimson Heads and Ari Also worth noting is that even if you... Shit.
What are you talking about?
Dude, every time what Midnight Medium does so well, and I already mentioned this, is the fact that he has these breaks in his video to where a normal retrospective guy would have cut that out. He wants every normal retrospective guy that I've seen wants everything to be flossed down to the details like they're a G-string on a supermodel. And Midnight Medium's like, oh, this is kind of funny, I'm gonna leave it in, and it works every time on me. Every single time. Even the jokes that are punny, they still work on me because it's such a jarring difference in comparison to what other retrospective guys do. He gets all the details, he gets everything right that you need in these retrospectives, but he also makes sure to show his personality, and it's something I appreciate.
Also worth noting is that even if you manage to eat a ghost, they return to the center of the maze to respawn eventually, much like Crimson Heads and Ari Remake would do unless you burn them up. Pac-Man's maps don't encourage risk-reward exploration, mind you, but you do have some choice in how to make enemies slow down by getting them to follow you through a warp hole. There is some room for affecting the outcome in subtle ways that survival horror fans are likely to appreciate from a design standpoint. But again, we ask, is that enough to make Pac-Man survival horror and satisfy our thought experiment today? You know, I want to say yes, even if just facetiously, but I think I have to err on the side of no, with one big caveat.
I'm Greg.
I'm Gabby.
It's because of Greg and Gabby? That's what we're learning here. Dude, Magic Spoon is the reason why we cannot have Pac-Man be horror. It's all because of Greg and
Okay,
Gabby.
so why is it not? Well, the map lacks the fear of the unknown and lacks any risk-reward consideration because it's all fully visible at all times.
Rewards for exploration and rewards for defeating enemies are ultimately the driving force behind what a player is obligated to do in order to progress or discover more items. You carefully turn over every stone and the game rewards you with more of those precious resources you need to complete your mission. But that's if you choose to do so, because exploration and seeking items beyond.
Is this Silent Hill 2? Because if I just found out that Silent Hill 2 has the weird camera angles, I'm really upset because I bought the game for original Xbox. Not original Xbox. I bought like the one that everybody hates. What is it, like Resident Evil series remastered or whatever? And I haven't played them. And if I find out right now in this moment that fucking Silent Hill. If Silent Hill has the shitty camera angles, I'm gonna be so upset. Hello, sister. How are you doing?
And what's needed for progress is optional.
Unlike Mild Conviction's definition that exploration be optional, Pac-Man requires complete exploration of the map, which doesn't encourage very emergent scenarios to come up where you have to make split-second decisions about how to use resources.
Essentially, ammunition and healing items are practically currency that you run the risk of spending in order.
Oh, okay, but I have a caveat to that. You don't have to get all of the cherries. You don't have to get the cherries and stuff for those extra point boosts. You can finish the level in Pac-Man, if I remember right, without ever picking up the cherries. Those are just bonuses. You don't have to explore that section. It's got tons of different... I will not be playing Silent Hill 2 then. If the remake doesn't have those camera angles, I'm probably going to play the remake then. But that is something that I was wondering if you were going to bring up, and it seems like you're not. You don't have to pick up the cherries to beat the level. Or any of the fruit, for that matter. Those are just perks, so you can leave those on the screen. So therefore, you don't have to go to that section of the map to get that power up in that bonus.
To complete an encounter. And on a case-by-case basis, you must decide which is more valuable and should be saved for later, and which can be used right now.
And right here is a point to what I'm saying. In order to get the best score in a Pac-Man map, you can either you have to get those cherries in order all the pellets though. Yeah, you have to get all the pellets, but you don't have to get the cherries. And that all depends on if you want the best score for the level or not. If you just want to beat the level and move on, you just do the bare minimum and get all the pellets, right? But if you want the best score on the map in Pac-Man, you have to then get the cherries and the other it was like cherries and some other bullshit. I think it was just cherries originally. But if you want to get those and get a bigger point boost, you then get the cherries, but you don't have to. So that could be, I mean, it's a very, very minuscule argument to push toward the point of Pac-Man being survival horror, but it does work in this context to the very, it's like a Contair amount of resemblance, but I thought it was something worth being brought up.
Really, it's neither, but you should always be ready and willing to choose one.
John Romero's also quick to point out in Doom Guy that the game is also fairly predictable once you get good at it, because you could remove a lot of the tension and fear of failure by just memorizing the AI's behavioral patterns.
It didn't take me long to realize that the game followed a distinct pattern. The way the ghost pursued Pac-Man didn't randomly change at the start of a new game. It was all rigidly pre-programmed. I figured out a way to evade the ghosts in the early stages of the game, and it worked every time.
So no, in the final analysis, Pac-Man is not survival horror in the strictest sense, but I had to admit in my research for this thought experiment that its emphasis on avoidance of enemies in a dark maze with limited resources is absolutely something that Uchu, Gisos, Nostromo, and Haunted House took a step further mechanically, and which would eventually be improved and iterated upon by Project Firestarter and Sweet Home and Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil and all the rest on up to the RE and Silent Hill 2 remakes of today. So, while the conclusion of what Pac-Man's genre actually is probably unsurprising to you, I do hope that I've opened your eyes a little bit to the Pac-Man's impact on survival horror, and that it's not just about rhetoric or confirmation bias, but it's about a tangible contribution that can be felt down to just the very things you do in the game, what they look like, and to some degree, how the game feels, except with the volume turned up a little bit on the horror. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you fire up Pac-Man in an arcade, you'll pause a moment to consider whether the game's nearly as charming as it normally feels, or whether it's a bit spookier than you remember. Godspeed, and may you survive the Waka Waka indeed. Thanks for watching.
fantastic video. This is an absolute banger. This is a banger. I liked it.
Messed up.
Ah!
Before I go, I'd like to give a huge shout out to those of you generous enough to support my work by becoming a patron.
Yeah, these guys, mad Giga Chads, they all have a resounding, a massive penis size. I want you all to know that their penis size is much bigger than mine because I have a micro penis. It is very small, minuscule. In the scheme of penises, when you look at like a good penis or whatever, I don't know what a good penis length is, like something, I don't know, but mine's below that. Let's say below that. It's because of my hip gyrations, because I learned the ways of dance when I was a young lad, that I have the ability to make my small penis work. But these guys don't even need those hip gyrations because they're supporters of Midnight Medium, and that's important. All their penis sizes are massive. I can honestly say that Pac-Man never scared you. Well, that's because you're stupid, Rihanna, and nobody cares. Rihanna is my sister. She comes into my chat every once in a while, and her opinions are invalid. Whenever you hear her say anything, just know that it is an invalid statement.
Mark Neubauer, Deadforge, Hey Blondie, Hey Show.
But yeah, this is a really good video. I liked that even though he came in with a confirmation bias, he still, his research led to him disagreeing with him. Even though I'm over here finding, I'm going to say that Pac-Man is survival horror, and I'm going to base it all on my comments about cherries, because you don't have to pop the cherry, and sometimes popping the cherry is the most scary part, so you avoid popping that cherry and make sure you get with some sluts, some hot dogs down a hallway, and you just finish the level. You just get it pumped out, right? But if you pop the cherry, you believe all women. Believe all women. Yeah, I guess believe everything that my sister says. Believe all women. I can't even make jokes about that because it gets incestual. It gets incestual if I make too many jokes like that, and I don't want to get that dark. I don't want to get that dark. I'm not Pac-Man, guys. I'm not fucking Pac-Man. I'm not that dark, boys. I'm not that dark. But yeah, fantastic video. Midnight Medium. If you haven't watched him, go subscribe to his channel. The dude is absolutely goated when it comes to all of his videos. I'm going to highlight a video. We're not going to watch it. We're not going to watch it, but I want to put this in right at the end of this real quick. Speaking of funny things, I made the thumbnail for this video partially. He adjusted it, but the original idea, that was me. I'm a genius. Let's see here. Hold on. What's the first? This video right here. The complete history of every Hellboy game. Fantastic video. This is the first video that I fully watched from Midnight Medium, and I loved it. I loved this video so much. It is such a good video. I mean, a lot of his videos are good. I've seen the Ghostwire one. I've seen a few of them. I listen to him at work sometime. But this was I was in a Hellboy rabbit hole for a while there, where I was just all information coming out from Hellboy, I was gulping it down, just like massive amounts of semen, just gulping it all. And this video was so good in a compilation of all of the Hellboy stuff. I love this video. I think it deserves way more views. It needs to be like blasted into the atmosphere. And to be honest, I love that video. I've really only played Pac-Man that was on GameCube. That was Pac-Man World 2. Rihanna, the one you own is Pac-Man World 2. Yeah, I played the most. I loved that game. There is an ice skating level in Pac-Man World 2 that will make you just fucking excited. It's such a good level. It is so good. It is incredible. Burp, sorry. People get mad when I burp while I'm talking. But Pac-Man World 2 is incredible. It is not horror at all if you want to go into those. But those games aren't really feel like Pac-Man either. They are just platformers with Pac-Man at the head. But yeah, that was the Midnight Medium thing. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever. I don't care. We are going to go into another video game thing. I made God of War remake because Sony doesn't want to. And I want to make a statement here. Sony, you suck. You're garbage. You're trash. And you don't want to know why you're trash? Because when I fire up my Xbox, right? When I fire up the old sex box, you know what happens? I can play every single one of those Xbox games that have been released throughout the years. I can go buy Conquer Reloaded right now. Actually, I already bought it. I made a review on it. Go check out my channel. Check out my Conquer Reloaded video. It is a glaze session on that game. But I want you to know something, Sony. When I want to play your games, it's like I have to jump through 37 hoops because you refuse to even remaster them on your modern console. But oh, you'll remaster The Last of Us Part 2 872 times so we can see Abby get piped down. No one cares. Dude, let me just play God of War 1 and 2 on modern hardware. Let me play the Resistance games. Killzone? Never heard of her. That's how it feels being a Sony fan of the older games. I mean, I'm not even that big of a Sony fan, but when I got my PlayStation 4, I was excited to play Killzone because I remember playing Killzone Liberation on my PSP, and that rocked, and I played that Killzone Shadow or whatever game, and it sucks. Mad cringe. And it just makes me so mad that Sony refuses to do anything in terms of maintain their old series. It's pathetic and sad. You know how bad I want to play Sly Cooper, Sly Cooper is a game that I would download and buy and own and be happy that I own it because I love the Sly Cooper games, but instead I gotta stream it. I gotta stream it behind a paywall. Yeah, Sony, you suck. You suck 80 chodes. That's how I feel about you. But let's get into this guy remaking God of War because Sony doesn't want to.
I have waited enough for the original God of War to get a remake, but all we get is just a remaster. It seems like Sony doesn't even care. Fuck it. I'm gonna do it myself. Or at least I'm gonna try. I started with a base mesh.
Those glasses are garbage, by the way. Trash glasses, mid glasses. You should have chosen something cooler. I get it, they look 3D, but I don't care. They're garbage.
Sculpted his head to look more like Kratos, and here we have Kratos, who's on drugs. I sculpted his body, gave him some muscle, drew some veins and details here and there. After adding all the body details, now it was time for some texturing.
Dude, look at that mouth. What can that mouth do, though? That's the question we're all waiting for. What can that mouth do?
White painting for his skin, and of course we can't forget about the detail. Then I drew the iconic red tattoo on his body. In the original God of War, Kratos had this extra tattoo on his left arm, which is removed later on in the sequel game. But I wanted to be faithful to the original design as much as possible, so I painted that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Kratos! Oh, but he's still naked. So let's make him some
massive wiener. Massive wiener, my friends.
For the clothes and accessories, I have used a bunch of different techniques. I used the cloth simulation to make the skirt, selected some faces, extruded them outward, wrapped some bandages and chains around his forearm. I modeled some sandals. Alright, I'm not gonna pretend that I know everything. To me, modeling is just about pushing and pulling vertices until it looks good enough. So, yeah. After I finished modeling the accessories, I've brought them into Substance Painter and textured them as well. I even tried to paint the smaller details like the blood stains, the dirt, the stitches and stuff to make it more believable. Our model is now pretty much done.
Not gonna lie, kind of looks worse. Kind of looks worse, not gonna lie. I know you're trying here, Chief. You're giving it your full foot forward, but it kind of looks Middleton.
It doesn't move. You know, in order to make a character move in 3D, we have to utilize something called rigging. Well, I'm pretty sure you do not know what rigging is. You do. Alright, I'm gonna explain it anyway. Rigging is basically the part where you put some bones inside of your mesh so then you'd be able to move it. You can also customize the shapes of the bones to your liking so it's more manageable and less like your worst nightmare. For that purpose, I'm gonna use the Blender Rigify add-on to make it easier. I also made the sandals wrinkle when bent. It's a small detail, but that will be cool since we'll have close-ups later on. Now Kratos is able to move! Let's go! For the skirt, I added a cloth simulation to make it move realistically, but I failed again and again.
Even with me kind of crapping on how Kratos looks like a doofus face, I still think this is more work than Sony's put in like the last generation. Oh, I had the hiccups like a little girl.
And again, and again! I found this tutorial from Edin Spiegel, and it worked. But when Kratos turns around, it messes up again! Leave it alone. It's not gonna move a lot anyway. I was aiming for recreating the intro of God of War 1 when Kratos jumps down from the mountain, and that's about 10 shots. I'll start with the menu, where Kratos is standing in the middle of fire. I just add Kratos to the scene, download some fire footage from Artlist, remove the watermark. Well, this is my first video. Yeah, I mean, of course I'm broke like basically everyone when starting YouTube. I then dropped the fire footage.
Wait, this is his first video? Bro showed up out of nowhere? Well, hold on. That's his first... Bro's way better than me. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not upset. I'm not upset that he's better than me and literally dropped one video and got 96,000 subscribers overnight. Not mad about it. It's fine. Not a big deal. I'm only gonna cry when I go to sleep tonight. It's whatever. It's not a big deal. I mean, I've only seen one good dick joke, and he hasn't said slapping clit yet, so I still think I'm better than him.
added some lights, and gave them a subtle animation to simulate a flickering fire effect. If you look at the original game, Kratos is just standing with his eyes closed doing nothing, but I wanted to add more drama to it, so I animated Kratos as if he's remembering his past memories and feeling regret. Like, when we think about our ex, I remember how stupid we were. This is already looking so sick. I also thought it would be cool for his memories to show in the background, so I decided to use some of the original cutscenes from the game and blend them with the flames in After Effects. After adding the God of War title, the text, and the buttons, our first shot is pretty much done. Now it's time for the most difficult shot. The cliff shot. Yeah, I grew a beard. It was a very long project. I started with gathering some rock scans from Sketchfab, but I couldn't find anything close to the Greek structure behind Kratos, so I've got an idea. I opened the game on my PC, played a little bit, and then went to the stage where you can see the statues. I extracted the 3D models and imported them into Blender. I added more resolution, sculpted some details, and modeled the new shield, because the first one sucked. I have watched the original models closely and tried to replicate the details as close as possible to the original models.
This is sick. I mean, this is like literally, this is what I would do if I was Sony. I'd be like, oh, yes, I am Sony. Sony, no, don't fix a game. That was super racist, guys. I don't care. Anyways, this is giving me adult onset ADHD. Absolutely, dude. The amount of shit he's just throwing down your mouth, dude. But no, I would be like, if I was Sony, I would watch this video like, do you see respect he put on family? And then I would hand it to a development studio and say, do this, fix this, print money. Why aren't we printing money? I don't understand modern gaming. I'm gonna go on a little rant here. We're gonna get a little crazy, boys and girls. I'm gonna need you to come close to me. I want you to come on me. I want you to think about something. Anytime you're out there defending one of these corporations, I want you to remember that there's like a fucking gajillion people working on games every single day. And they print out maybe like 1 or 2 games a year. When there are AA and indie devs and bringing up sometimes upwards of 4 games a year. You don't believe me? You don't believe me that a publishing company could bring 4 games a year? Look at DOSman. DOSman's out there doing that. New Blood is just printing money on a daily basis. You look at some of these things and they're building these games from scratch, but oh no, these multi-billion people teams with multi-billion dollars, they can't remaster one game. Get the fuck out of here. No, we should expect more from these companies. We should demand more. What is going on here? Why aren't we getting greatness like this? It's like they're not the longest games either. Just make them look pretty and re-release them. Is it that hard?
The game. I then dropped them into Substance Painter for some texturing. I started with painting the smaller details on the models because it's much faster and easier than sculpting them in 3D. After I finished detailing the statue, I gave it a rocky material with some dirt and then painted some golden parts here and there. I then did the same thing with the gate and the structure, just painting some bump details, adding some patterns, cracks, dirt, imperfections, painting some gold, changed some colors to add more variation, and we're done! I know! Genius, right?
This should look so much fun. Eventually, one day, I want to make a game. I really want to make a game. I want to, and I think I'm going to use, like, Easy FPS Maker when I make a game, but one day I'm going to do it. When I start making, like, when money starts flying from the ceiling and I can buy a Supreme Money Gun and just flail it around, I will make a game. I don't care what it takes. And I want to do shit like this. This looks so much fun.
I deserve an Oscar for this. Now it's time to make the scene. I dropped a sky image for the background, then I placed the rock scans and the models I created into the scene. This part was really a big deal for me, since I never made an exterior environment before, so everything from the mountains to the 3D assembling was a learning curve. I watched countless tutorials, including Martin Kluckner's environment course, and I searched through tons of reference images to capture the right mood. Since I was working on a budget, I had to rely on free resources for skies. I even used AI to generate references. There was a lot of experimenting and trial and error, but seeing it all come together made it.
This is the best way to use AI. Is for reference. I think that our reference and placeholder is one of the most important things. I think that a lot of people could utilize some AI when it comes to actually jumping in. You're like, oh, I want this character to look this way. You plug them in, you get an idea, and then you craft your own version of it. I think that's a completely fair. Instead of like hiring a bunch of artists to do it, you can then utilize, okay, this is what I want it to look like. I try another AI image, I find both of those, and then I create something organically original that is similar to those. I think as a placeholder or as a influence, I see no problem with AI.
Wait, it looks like shit! I mean, everything is flat and boring. Oh, I know how to fix it. With lighting. I masked some clouds, added them into the scene, added some gradients between the mountains to fake depth, placed some volumetric clouds in the foreground, and here comes the magic of lighting. I start with
absolutely, and here's the thing too. I wanted to piggyback off that for one more second. I think that the problem right now is a lot of people are it's either all the way against or all the way for, and I don't see enough talking about the middle, and because AI is not going anywhere. And it sucks, like, I understand that you might hate it a lot, but it's not going anywhere. So I think if we could, like, have more logical conversations about what applications are okay and what application, like, obviously, if you just make it a complete AI game and it's just, like, it's slop, yeah, okay, that's bad. But if you're like, oh, well, let's attack this guy because he used it as a placeholder, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. And I think we need to find a middle gray area where it's like, well, this isn't going anywhere. How should it be utilized? I think that's a much more productive conversation than just vilifying everything.
With adding an HDRI image, and wow, it already looks amazing. To make it more interesting, I'm gonna adjust the effects of the clouds further. I added more lights to the scene to make the details pop even more. I even added some fog with a subtle animation to make it move slightly. Now it looks less like shit, which is good enough. By the way, this massive environment is just some rocks and planes floating around outside the camera view. And that is the first rule of VFX. As long as no one notices, you never fail. To me, Kratos' eyes were too lifeless, so I added 2 small point lights in front of his eyes to make him look more tearful, and it looks amazing if you ask me. We certainly don't want Kratos to stand like Kate Winslet in the movie Titanic, so let's give him some movements. I have spent about 6 hours animating these few seconds. I really hate keyframe animating. I also added some wind to make the curse move. So cool. If you pay attention, you can see there are 2 crows flying around in the scene in the original game. For that, I found this model in Sketchfab, which was free by the way. I imported it into Blender, and it looks like a bird who's trying to bully you for some reason.
Subscribe!
I duplicated the model, offset the animation, and then made them follow a path. For my shot, I wanted the birds to fly straight from where the camera is and cause the camera to wiggle a little, because I think it will make it much cooler that way. And with that, the second shot is finished! In the original, the transition from the menu to the game is quite simple. The fire just fades out. But for my remake, I wanted to add more depth to the moment, so instead of fire just disappearing, I created this mask to make it slowly extinguish, as if the flames being sniffed out, leaving only embers raising to the sky. The rest of the shots were much easier. For this shot where Kratos is looking down the abyss, I just changed the camera position. The rock under his feet didn't have much detail, so I scattered a bunch of smaller rocks on the surface to make it more interesting. And with that, our third shot is finished. For this shot where Kratos raises his foot, I changed the camera position again, and animated his legs using keyframes. Please help. In the original scene, you can see those pebbles fall after Kratos lifts his heel. So I added some small rocks and pushed them forward using an invisible box, and with that, our fourth shot is done. For the shots where Kratos is falling, I had very cool ideas by using AI. Well, not exactly, it's not AI, those are called modifiers. You pose your character into the desired position, select the body parts that you want them to move, and then add a noise modifier, and it's done. God, just imagine Kratos jumping from the cliff like this. This is too strong, I have to lower it.
That was good, I liked that. There's a reason why this guy's succeeding. He's still, I still would add more cum jokes in because it's me. If anybody else would say that, I'd be like, you're cringe. But it's King Jiffy Codes, guys. Give me some love.
The intensity, and there you go. For the rocks behind him, I didn't want to model a whole mountain and make Kratos fall from it. It'll take too much time and processing power. But I had some tricks under my sleeve. Instead, I added a slender, scaled it, used a displacement modifier on it, applied the rocky texture on it, and then made it rotate along the x-axis. I animated the fog to move upwards and gave the camera a shaking animation. And that's enough to sell the illusion of Kratos falling. Remember, as long as no one fails, it'll never notices. Wait, for the rest of the shots it was basically the same scene, I just changed the camera position. But for the close-up shots I made some subtle facial animations, as if Kratos closes his eyes and accepts his fate. I mean, it's barely noticeable, but I thought it would be a cool detail to have. And finally, the ocean. I dropped a plane, added the ocean modifier, made some water material, and then used the same rocks I used in this scene and scattered them all over the surface. And finally, added 3 levels of clouds, each of which is weaker than the previous one, so the fog gradually disappears. And with that, the final shot is done. To enhance the quality even further, I dropped them into DaVinci Resolve for some color grading. For the mood of the game, I was actually looking for something dark and sad. I used this image as my reference. You know, color grading isn't just about making something look cool, it's about feeling. I wasn't just pushing sliders, I was trying to capture a mood.
He wants you to cry, and then your tears roll down, and you take your tears and you push them into your hand, and you put them in a jar because those are lubrication for later.
Kratos was depressed and disappointed, and I wanted the colors to reflect that. And after over 3 months of modeling, texturing, rigging, animating, rendering, post-processing, I'm sure you want to subscribe. Please? But first, enjoy the first look.
Anytime he says subscribe, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you are a little cum nugget, and I hate you. Okay, please subscribe. You want my baby to starve? Do you want my baby to starve? You better subscribe, or she's gonna eat just fine. I would starve before I'd let my baby starve.
The God of War remake.
The gods of Olympus have abandoned me. Now there is no hope.
And Kratos cast himself from the highest mountain in all of Greece. After 10 years of suffering, 10 years of endless nightmares, it would finally come to an end. Death would be his escape from madness.
Subscribe for part 2. Dude had said subscribe so many times, so many good call to actions. This is a really cool thing, and I think this highlights a broader point, and that's why a lot of people clicked on it too. And not just me. You look at the fact that this guy sitting around, probably in a house full of used tissues, made this by himself with no other reason but he wanted to do it. And now we're looking at the fact that somebody's doing more than what Sony is. And it's kind of sad because all they have to do is remaster it and get it onto modern hardware. But they refuse to do that, which is just absolutely awful. So, like this guy, his name is Alpha. That's his name. Is from. It'll be in the description when I release this as a standalone video. This was solid, deserves a like. A little bit of ADHD crap going on, a lot of cuts. What he did with the glasses was very Deadpool, but not in a good way. It looked kind of bad, but everything else was pretty solid. I think it was a solid video. I really like this idea that other people are like, yeah, dude, maybe if Sony would get their ass together, we would get these games back and play them natively. That would be awesome. But what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? But now we're gonna get on to some new stuff. Now we're gonna get on to some new stuff here. I'm gonna move on to some anime now. We're gonna do some anime Goombo garbage, and I have had a video in my watch later for the most longest of time. It is called The Most Vile Villain Ever in Anime and Manga. Now, I am very interested. Wait. Okay. It's not who I thought. Okay. I watched another video. Where it was he was talking about Griffith, and I was hoping this was another video about Griffith. I love Berserk, but I can't take any more Griffith stuff. So hopefully this is a video that is different. But this is the most vile villain in anime and manga by the Masked Man. Probably, don't know why I'm not subscribed. My favorite anime YouTuber. This guy is absolutely goated when it comes to his videos. I've reacted to him in the past. I'm going to probably keep reacting to him because the guy knows what he is talking about. But that's what we got going here today, guys. Let's get right into it.
I want you to imagine for a moment that you were abducted as a child. You were thrown into a human-sized container and lowered with someone else in the container next to you. Once you both hit bottom, both containers are raised rapidly. You see the person next to you take on a different appearance, but you, on the other hand, decompose painfully. You scream, it hurts over and over as your flesh melts on your bones.
Bro, don't tempt me with a good time. What are we talking about here? We're talking about me getting turned into a fleshy lump of goopity gawk? This sounds amazing. What are we talking about?
You become a puddle of skin and organs, writhing in pain, but still alive. Now imagine if I told you that doesn't even come close to capturing the full image of the person responsible for this. There are a few candidates worthy of the title of most vile villain in anime and manga. Shout out to Mullet Man for giving the blessing for the video, but those candidates would be Shira from Blade of the Immortal, Kakihara from Ichi the Killer, Seiko from Blood on the Tracks, and of course Griffith from Berserk.
But I mean, Griffith is definitely up there. I mean, Griffith definitely was like, I am going to do very naughty things that are not consensual while you're stuck there with your arm arm in a monster's mouth. He is a vile monster. Griffith, I want you dead.
I want to delve into this idea of vile, however, since it's an interesting thought on why we see characters like these as the most vile, instead of ones that from a number standpoint have done a lot more damage in their respective worlds. For example, someone like Frieza from Dragon Ball or any other mass-murdering maniac. Why do we see certain villains in a far more negative light than others, despite the damage they do being relatively less? A book I read called
This is Dead Zone Rogue, an upcoming FPS roguelike set in space with a little bit of a horror.
Yeah, dude, you know what I hear when I hear roguelike? The game is trash and I don't want to play it. I know that was an ad that just popped in because I don't have ad blockers or whatever, but dude, roguelikes, garbage, trash. I see roguelike, I shove it off into the Shadow Realm because I will never play it because you're garbage.
Anatomy of Evil, written by Michael H. Stone, gives an interesting point on what causes us to have a visceral reaction to certain things. Very early on in the book, he gives an example of a case where a man under the influence of drugs shot 3 people. 2 lived and 1 died, but one of the survivors had been blinded in both eyes and had just gotten married last week. The jury showed a strong reaction to what happened to the blinded man, even more than the man who had actually been killed. Why is that? In the previous paragraph, the book says, quote, "Ironically, certain crimes amounting to less murder will be experienced as more clearly evil than murder itself, because of the suffering involved, coupled with our very human tendency to identify with the victim and to imagine how the crime would have affected us had we been the victim."
There is also a thing where, like, this is like a discussion that blind people have about if you're born blind, it's like, you never knew. You never knew. So your life is set. You don't even think about what things look like. You don't really like worry about it because you are living in this life. This is your way. But it's much harder on people who had sight and then lose it because now they've had something exponentially important to everyday living taken away from them. Just eat it out of their existence. And people can empathize with that. I mean, it's like, dying's bad, but it's the effect of all you're having that empathy, you're having that little like wooey I feel bad moment, and that shit sucks. And you can have that appeal, especially when you're looking directly at the person, because during the trial, you know they're gonna wheel him out there and they're gonna be like, look how his face is fucked up. He used to have such a pretty face. He had the best face until they took his face. Oh, the Haitians took his face. The Haitians had nothing to do with this. I just wanted to do a Trump voice. You're welcome.
I think this portion is very telling of how we perceive stories told to us, like if we were a jury judging these characters. Hence why characters that from a pure numbers view are more evil, we don't really throw them up there when talking about vile. I seriously doubt any of us cringed physically when Planet Vegeta was being blown to smithereens. The names I listed earlier, on the other hand, are seen as some of the most disgusting and incomprehensibly evil individuals. I would like to talk about who I think could be the most vile villain in anime and manga, despite only being around for 10 chapters in the manga, or in anime form, 1 film. Bondrewd, the Sovereign of the Dawn from Made in Abyss. Made in Abyss is an ongoing series that started in 2012 and suffers from hiatus, and so it seems to have a low chapter count at 67, but each chapter I think is very efficient in moving the story forward. I bring this up because despite only being around in present time for 9 to 10 chapters, technically starting at chapter 29, the story does a really good job of getting the most out of his peculiar personality and horrendous actions. Bondrewd is mentioned back in chapter 15 as one of the White Whistles, individuals known to be the best cave raiders, people who traverse the extremely dangerous layers of the abyss. The first White Whistle we meet is Ozen the Immovable, someone of supreme strength and a horrifyingly cold and blunt personality who explains the dangers of traversing the lower layers to Reg and Rico, the 2 primary characters of the story. She is stated to be unrivaled in physical strength amongst the White Whistles, and given what we know of her, it is safe to say her words carry weight and credibility. This is important for context because as she lists the dangers of the abyss and the White Whistles who are in the lower layers, she singles out Bondrewd. Even so, you should do your best not to stay in the 5th layer for long. Reg asks why that is, and Ozen responds so that you don't bump into any of the other White Whistles. The depth's 5th layer, the Sea of Corpses, is as deep as humans can—
The Sea of Corpses. Well, where are you going? I'm just gonna go on a little sabbatical. I'm gonna go on a little, what do they call it over in Queensland? Oh, I'm going on a little rompity-romp, squiggly wiggly over to have a little bit of a vacation. I'm going on a holiday. And where would you be going? Oh, the Sea of Corpses. Sounds like a wonderful place. Lots of joy and happiness down there.
Can go and return alive. I suppose some of them are there. Those who are down in the abyss right now are the Sovereign of Guidance, Wakuna the Chosen, the Sovereign of Mystery, Shraja the Mysterious, the Sovereign of Dawn, Bondrewd the novel. Among them, Bondrewd in particular is an out-and-out scoundrel. He's not kind like I am, so you better be careful. Mind you, at this point, this is coming from the character that just beat Reg damn near within an inch of his life to prove a point. It's always an effective thing to have other characters speak on an antagonist and build up the reputation of that character, and then we see said antagonist confirm the fears through their actions. If the character is pompous and full of themselves, then it's no surprise if the villain sort of hypes themselves up, but when trying to build up a character that isn't going to be present for a bit, I really do think it's a simple but powerful method of adding weight to that character. Ozin, being the communicator of said information, isn't shown to be a dishonest individual. If anything, she can be faulted for being too honest. But in this context, she has seen the terrors of—
Dude, this is a thing. A lot of people are like, well, that's too honest. They're too honest. I don't care, dude. Just give me that brutal honesty. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. I'd rather have somebody be like, oh, yeah, dude, I don't like you. And I'll be like, understandable. Why don't you like me? Well, these reasons. All right, that's fair enough. Instead of just like beating around the bush, beating around the dick and stuff, I just don't like that, dude. Just give me the nitty gritty, bro. I'm gonna trust you way more if you're always telling me exactly what you think. If you're just like, I'm not a mind reader, I can't read through your fucking weird niceties. Just tell me the shit. Just speak your nonsense, bro, and I'm gonna respect you way more.
The abyss and has been affected by it, and is now warning these two who want to venture into its depths. I didn't catch this at first, but since it's one of the only descriptions we get of Bondrewd before meeting him, I looked into the definition of scoundrel since I believe that word was used intentionally, at least in translation. A dishonest and unscrupulous person, a rogue, and unscrupulous is defined as having or showing no moral principles, not honest or fair. In retrospect, scoundrel is without a doubt the perfect word to describe Bondrewd, someone who you cannot let your guard down around, an untrustworthy individual who has no conscience, is unethical, immoral, or the more appropriate word would actually be amoral. This is the portrait painted to us about Bondrewd, and how foreign parents describe their children when they grow their hair out. I do have a bad habit when it comes to overdoing the intros of these videos. I don't know if there's something that can help with that, but I do know of something that can help with other bad habits you might have, as well as help me justify the amount of time and money I put into the new channel aesthetic.
Bro,
the next time we get a—
Bro, just jump. If you want his thing, go to his thing and get his thing. It's gonna be like boner pills or something. I don't know. I don't need to listen to the ad. If you guys want me to listen to more ads, I will, but I'm not going to.
The next time we get a look into Bondrewd is through the perspective of Nanachi, the third primary character of the story who clearly has ties to Bondrewd, a flashback scene where he praises her for the new
I'm loving the aesthetic and the art design of this. I think it goes so freaking hard. This is gorgeous. I love that it's got like two child's hands hanging from his neck. He just is like the perfectly designed villain. The kid, to have that counteraction with the like childlike weird amalgamations of what like these creatures are. They kind of look like kids, but you can tell that they're different. They're different and very of this world. I love this. I need to check this out. I've never heard of this before. I've never like gone down the rabbit hole of watching this, so this is all new to me and I'm enjoying the fuck out of it. I am getting like covered in all of its juices and I loved every instance and moment of it.
And tells her to smile since the experiment was a success. So despite him, again, really only being around and active for 10 chapters, he's given a healthy amount of build-up.
From the #1 rated brand in cordless outdoor—
Dude, this is what he needed and he would have been a good guy. If he would have gotten himself one of these cordless battery operated mowers, he would have been not a goon monster.
Directly responsible for the most infamous scene in the entire series, really one of the most unsettling and brutal scenes in anime as a whole. During this flashback scene, we see how Nanachi went from a normal girl to having the form she does now, as Bondrewd took a bunch of children to use as experiments.
Bro, anytime you see somebody who's experimenting on kids, that is bad. That is big bad. I'm gonna make a strong stance that if you're taking kids and throwing them into tubes and having them melted into amalgamations of creatures, not a good thing to do. Not a real cash money individual, if you know what I mean.
Brave children who do not falter even at the prospect of setting foot inside the chasm, please take a step forward. From there, we see what his base of operations looks like, and how Nanachi and Midi, another girl that was taken in by Bondrewd, become close friends. Midi is taken to be experimented on, and this is where we overhear a conversation between Bondrewd and one of his assistants, since Nanachi is trying to follow where Midi was taken. He is reprimanded for bringing children who will never be able to return, and that from a humanitarian perspective, this is just wrong. Bondrewd is quick to respond and says there's no need to worry since he's not making use of them as humans. Nanachi is also captured and placed in a large container next to Mitty, and that's when we get to see Bondrew's motive. The 6 layers curse, death or loss of one's humanity. I'd sure like to do something about it. Those chambers you are in are capable of forcing the curse all to one side. Attempts that paired a person with something besides a fellow human didn't go well. However, Nanachi just happened to come join us. I regret having to use 2 adorable little beings such as yourselves, but as you 2 were such close friends...
You're pretty adorable. We knew you're really cute. But listen, I'm going to have to turn one of you into a puddle of guts and bones. I don't like it. You don't like it. It's sometimes you gotta make sacrifices. You gotta make sacrifices for the greater good. And you know what? Sometimes the greater good requires me melting one kid down and making one kid a super being. It just happens. Shit has to go that way sometimes. We gotta melt some kids.
Friends, I'm sure this shall be a success. Mitty says they were tricked, and Bondrew tells them that thanks to all of them, the darkness shall be driven out of this chasm. They weren't tricked. And so he lowers both of them, and as the containers are then raised, Nanachi transforms, and Mitty, well...
Bro, that looks like a tight weekend. Dude, when can I ride this at Universal, bro? I'm going to trick all of my enemies into getting into the side tube, and I'm just going to become like a werewolf. I'm going to become a really cool werewolf, and they're just going to be turned into a bucket of blood and guts. I'm not seriously wanting to put my enemies in a murder tube. Come on, guys, it's a joke. Oh, did I not put enough, jerk off reference. Now it's not a bad thing.
Made in Abyss is a series with some of the best world building ever mixed in with a disturbing presentation. It's like I would like to recommend this to the homies, but that ain't happening. And that ain't even getting into the stupid-ass bonus pages the author puts in the manga, but that's nor here nor there. Mitty isn't even given the liberty.
Burn it with fire! It's got child stuff! This is no longer worth watching. I'm sorry, guys. You were all interested, I was interested, and then he put lolly stuff out. The author likes lolly. Burn him with fire. I'm sorry. Like... this author obviously is a goon monster. He needs his hard drive checked.
Liberty of death, but instead is near impossible to kill and is now forced to live and suffer as this thing crawling around on the ground. With Nanachi now hoping Reg can put an end to her suffering.
Bro, I thought it died, but it's just like, it's a slit of teeth and claws, bro. What the? It turned into like an ugly, you know when a kid loves a toy for a long time and it keeps getting sewn together? That's what this fucking monstrosity looks like, dude. That's hella sad.
In a heartbreaking scene when Mitty is finally put out of her misery, we see Bondrew see Mitty's life signal turn off and congratulates as well as thanks Nanachi for getting it done. For a brief moment we get a glimpse of the other aspect of Bondrew that makes him terrifying beyond just seeming to be 10 steps ahead and morally reprehensible for science. At this point in the story, Bondrew does seem to fall under the typical mad scientist, someone willing to do wrong for the greater good and the progress of humanity, or himself, with no care for his subjects, but that would be a huge miss on what Bondrew is as a whole and what makes him uniquely twisted. When the trio finally make it to the 5th layer, they encounter one of Bondrew's Umbral Hands, a member of his cave raiding squad who tells them that the Sovereign of Dawn is awaiting their arrival. Upon arriving at the Edo front, Bondrew's base for operations, they are greeted by a girl asking if they are Papa's guests. Nanachi warns Reg and Rico, however, to be very careful with what they say, to choose their words carefully and to provoke the others into talking, because information is power. A very appropriate saying given the situation, but also an apt description of Bondrew. The conversation between the girl and the crew is interrupted when he finally enters the scene and presents himself.
Here, they give him the Darth Vader walk. He's coming to mash mush some children. He's like, bring me some kids to throw in the tubes. I guess it's just another Tuesday. Time to murder some children. Children killing. How I love to kill some kids. Cool walk. I'm Darth Vader. Cool walk. I'm Darth Vader. This guy is just wildly cool.
Alongside his Umbral Hands. Bondrew in the flesh.
In terms of design and like aesthetic, he's not cool in the fact that he kills kids. Come on now.
He once again congratulates Nanachi for putting Mitty out of her misery. And when I first read this in the manga, I read it with a sarcastic tone, sort of instigating, but the film really adds clarity to Bondrew's personality, especially his sincerity. Oddly enough, as shit will start hitting the fan a lot, Bondrew doesn't show sadness, doesn't seem to show any anger or resentment, or even display the sadistic pleasure one would associate with this type of mad scientist character. But if not, his tone is constantly upbeat, joyful, caring, and at no point do we see him with a different tone behind closed doors to indicate that isn't how he genuinely is. Because up to this point, one could write off Bondrewd as the typical crazy science man again, one who belittles those who do not understand his research and a goal for the greater good, but we are soon to see.
Dude, he's coming off I love those people that think they're smarter than everybody else, and they just like belittle everyone around them, and they're just happy. They're acting like you're the idiot, and they're so happy with themselves and so smug. It reminds me of David Jaffe. Now, David Jaffe doesn't melt children down, but he is an elitist prick, and I hate elitism. I hate it so much. There's nothing that makes me more turned off with talking to somebody than if they act like they're better than everything you do because they know more. And it's like, if you think you know more than everybody else in the room, you're the biggest idiot.
Is. Because up to this point, one could write off Bondrewd as the typical crazy science man again, one who belittles those who do not understand his research and a goal for the greater good, but we are soon to see that Bondrewd can't be as easily boxed in like that. A little bit of time passes and Reg and Nanachi are nowhere to be found, and Prushka saves Riko from climbing up the forbidden steps on her own. Riko asks Prushka what kind of person Bondrewd is in her eyes. Prushka responds with, "My papa's the best. He's always thinking of me." This is such a strange thing to hear given how the first scene we see Bondrewd in for an extended period of time is him showing no issue and sacrificing a little girl, but at the same time he is capable of raising a child who sees him.
Dude, so he doesn't always murder kids, so sometimes he's like, you seem like a sad baby. I'm gonna raise you up right. You're gonna be the best of the babies. Everybody's gonna like you, and you're gonna like me because I'm a good dad sometimes. But beyond, while you go play with your little toys and watch your Bluey, I'm gonna go melt a kid real quick. Is that cool with you? I think we're on the same page. I gotta go melt a child. You go watch Bluey.
As the best father she could have. But the next scene gives us a good look into Bondrewd and the way he sees things. We see that Nanachi is with Bondrewd and shows surprise at him having a daughter. He states their blood relationship is weak, but she is his daughter. When questioned about that, he elaborates further. Is what they call family restricted merely to those related by blood? I do not believe that to be so. Having souls that love each other is what makes people family. Blood just helps in that regard. Love. It's a matter of love, Nanachi. I'll get back to this. Nanachi agrees to help Bondrewd again as long as Reg and Riko aren't harmed, and Bondrewd apologizes saying it's too late. And then we see Reg being brutally experimented on as his arm.
Oh, dude, I knew it, dude. They're chilling, talking. His kid's over watching some fucking Bluey, and then they're like, well, remember that other kid you knew? Yeah, dude, I'm ripping out his pancreas right now, and I'm putting in some cyborg guns. Why? Tuesday. It's fucking Tuesday. What else do you think I'm gonna do? Cyborg guns and death. That's what I do. But I love her. She's watching Bluey. I'm just talking to you. We're just having a fucking little back and forth. You're like, oh no, my friend. Well, that fucking sucks, you fucking douchebag. I'm melting them in the other room. You didn't know I was melting them? That's fucking crazy, dog.
Arm is severed before being stopped by Nanachi, Prushka, and Riko. The scene where Reg gets experimented on is pretty bad in the manga, but it's even worse in the movie, although maybe not as bad as hearing Reg's name being said in the sub version.
The sub turns it into a rap song, dog. The sub turns it straight into like a Kendrick Lamar song, dude. It's Lil Wayne rhyming with the same word over and over again.
The group escapes for a moment and springs a trap on Bondrewd, having him in his upper hand surrounded by the deadliest monsters in the 5th layer. But then we get another description of Bondrewd when Reg asks how powerful he is. He is described as a monster. He was able to make an insane amount of progress, securing a base in the depths and getting rid of monsters that were fatal to explorers. But on the flip side, he used methods that were unheard of and without consulting others. And in a specific example, when plants and animals obstruct the way to securing a route, he burns them, without any regard for who or what might be in the area. The surrounding environment gets annihilated. Further, Bondrewd is described as a wanted criminal overseas, and that this person has encountered raiders touched by madness, but even Bondrewd is different from that. It was as if some strange, mysterious entity had donned a mask and was masquerading as a human. If there are indeed monsters in the netherworld, things like him would qualify. Reg believes he finally defeated Bondrewd. Prushka, watching it all go down and approach the dead body of her father, starts breaking down into tears.
Bro, Daddy, I can't watch Bluey while you murder kids anymore. No, I will never be able to enjoy it ever again. I'll watch Bluey and I'll just cry now. I used to like Bluey. Now I'll have to switch to Bear in the Big Blue House. What the fuck, dog?
The Umbral Hand taking care of Prushka walks over and takes the helmet off the dead body and puts it on, revealing that he is in fact the real Bondrewd. More so that he is immortal and all of the Umbral Hands are Bondrewd. Leaving with Prushka, and immediately after, we see him marking her body ready to perform an experiment on her. So which one is it? Because everyone that knows of
Bro, she cried and he's like, fucking, I don't deal with pussies around here, dog. I gotta experiment on you. I did love you, but then you cried like a little bitch. Now I'm gonna cut your fucking femur out.
Bondrewd describes him in the worst of ways. Meanwhile, Prushka describes him as a caring, loving father. One of these clearly seems to contradict the other, but the thing is they are both true, at least in Bondrewd's mind. To him, the inhumane experiment and practices aren't done with any ill will or malicious intent. He sees suffering as a necessary part of the process. What matters is progress. So even if he is sawing you in half while you are still awake, if that contributes to the goal of conquering the abyss, then he sees it as an act of love. I might have used the word sadistic to describe Bondrewd in the past. His actions can certainly be seen that way, but he does not derive pleasure from bringing others pain. He derives happiness from accomplishing the goal. Even if the progress isn't made by himself, he is glad. He sees it as a mark.
This really reminds me of BioShock. I know I always take BioShock and shove it everywhere because I love BioShock, but it's kind of the same idea that the reason BioShock became what it is in the underwater city is because there was no stopping. There was nobody that put a line and say, this is wrong, you don't go over this line. They just kept pushing for scientific exploration. And I know that there's a bigger meaning to BioShock with libertarianism and everything, but one of the most important factors was the exploration of science and how if you don't have a stopping point because of moral objections, you can become an absolute monster.
Thing. Even if it's his own death that's being caused, he always remains with a constant politeness, and we never see otherwise. This isn't somebody who understands what they are doing wrong but allows the success to hush his guilt, because he has no guilt at all. He doesn't show remorse or sorrow for his actions, outside of apologizing to Nanachi for jumping the gun and experimenting on Reg. Bondrewd is, as I described earlier, seemingly completely amoral. Not a human being killing another with some sense of morality, but more so like an animal killing another for food. He is without any moral constraint or limitation, and this allows him to view his own actions of ones of love. There is a question, however. What about all of the other children we saw that were in Bondrewd's base? We are then shown a room full of cartridges we heard of earlier. Nanachi explains that the kids were experimented on and are turned into living, suffering, fleshy curse repellent and shoved into containers so that Bondrewd can explore the 6th layer of the abyss. A fight between Bondrewd and Reg breaks out again, and a huge explosion causes them to descend into the lower layer. We see a bunch of hollows crawling around, and Bondrewd begins naming them. Shako, Itan, Sumiko, Puel, they all have names, you see, as the hollows crawl onto Bondrewd.
Oh, damn.
This is what's left of the children who were experimented on like Mitty.
Bro, dude, they all look like gobbledygook machines, bro. This is gross. They're just squibbligs, bro. They're squibbligged all around, dude. And he's like, that's Jimmy, that's Hank. I just turned them into squibbligs because fucking why not, dude? I had too many PBRs, I was chilling, and I was like, I haven't made a squibblig recently, so let's get it done, dude. What the fuck?
When one of the cartridges runs out and the fight continues, he says, My, Resima is finished. She was one of my kind-hearted masterpieces. She dreamed of becoming a princess, you know. Isn't that cute? So not only does he remember each of his victims by name, but also their hopes and dreams, further showing
Jimmy was a piece of shit. Really hated Jimmy. I can't wait to use him as a squibblig machine. God, Jimmy sucked. I just kind of keep Jimmy around so I can walk by and just flip him off. Every time I walk by, I'm just like, fuck you, Jimmy. Fuck you, Jimmy, you piece of shit. You fucking annoying piece of shit. He cried so much in that tube. Do you not get how annoying it was? I don't show a lot of emotion. Mostly, I'm a chill guy. I'm a fucking chill guy. But I'm gonna let you know, Jimmy was a prick, bro, and he deserved to be turned into a machine.
knowing that he believes all that he is doing has been out of care. The fight continues, and all of the cartridges run out, giving Bondrewd a similar transformation to Nanachi, which he refers to as a blessing, because in his mind, a curse or a blessing might as well be the same thing. As the cartridges shoot out, he continues to name them one by one: Takiri, Terithia, Nopero, and the final cartridge shoots out, and Mania, Prushka's pet, runs out and licks the liquid spilling from the cartridge. Ah, it was truly a marvelous adventure, was it not, Prushka? To really drive the heartbreak of this moment further, we are given an extensive flashback into Bondrewd taking care of and raising Prushka, helping recover her mind from the harm of the Abyss, giving her a name, and giving her Mania, and doing all he can to make sure she is okay and happy. In the flashback, he seems like an outstanding father, to the point that when she believes he was killed, she mourns for him, and even in her current state as fleshy fuel, she wishes to
Bro, that's so sad. I know that I made a lot of jokes about them being just smashed into fuel reserves and mashing up kids, and I made jokes about the kids being mashed up. But the fact that she can't even enjoy Bluey anymore, that she turned into a flesh machine to power his anus, it's not cool, dude. Big sad, big tears. Like, fucking yell one out for whatever this chick's name is, dude. Big sad, no more Bluey for her.
Overcome anything together, only wishing to go on adventures together one day. This is what
well,
really...
I mean, they did go on an adventure together, so... Woo! Adventures with Daddy! But, Daddy used you as a fucking energy drink, so that's gross.
Makes Bondrewd a unique type of evil, because oftentimes we hear that villains believe what they are doing is the right thing. That isn't always the case, but often for the morally gray antagonist, it is so. Him using himself to further advance is an act of self-love. Him using someone else in the way he seems fit is an individual act of love regardless of the greater good. He is the so-called Sovereign of the Dawn, and so he has control over everything in his sight, and so he has no need to be held down by morality. As long as progress is being made, that's all that matters. Hell, even once he is defeated, he shows no qualms about it and simply states that now his aspiration is to see Reg, Rico, and Nanachi succeed. All in the name of progress. Prushka in her final moments then turns into...
Bro's like, I know, I turned a lot of babies into machine puppets, into little goopity-gawka 5-hour energies for my back. But hey, sometimes you roll the dice and you just don't catch the breaks, pal. You don't get the breaks, pal. So, I hope you guys do really good in your adventures, and I wish you the best. I'm going to die right here, though, if that's cool. I know you guys got some shit to do. You got to do your taxes or whatever. I'm just going to die here now. But big ups to you guys, homie.
To a white whistle for Rico to use, which could be argued as part of Bondrewd's plan all along. Considering that he always seemed to be a couple hundred steps ahead, I wouldn't put it past him. Still, one thing is to see your test subjects as nothing, and another is to derive a sick, twisted pleasure from their suffering, but it is an entirely different kind of twisted to see each of them as your beloved children, and that the one that you personally raised as your closest child, and yet you can still mutilate them and have them either live forever as a hollow, or live as fleshy fuel until they expire. It's incomprehensibly evil how someone could be capable of this. Now, is he worse than Griffith like I put in the thumbnail? It's debatable, but you clicked on the video and...
I don't know, dude. I don't know. I think he might be. I mean, yeah, dude. No, he's definitely worse. He turned children into fucking flesh puppets and Energizer Bunny batteries. So, way worse. I mean, Griffith got his whole crew killed, but this guy's just been steadily perpetuating murdering children. This is like what Epstein's Island was doing after they utilized them to make Bill Clinton happy. This is like the worst of the worst. This is like shoot him with fire type energy. So I think this guy's a little worse.
Watch, so once again, all in the name of progress. Someone who at some point might have had some sense of morality, although we're never really told that, but was lost throughout the transferring of his soul from one body to another. But how could someone have such a detached view of the horrors he commits on others and love, be it someone he just met or his own daughter? Well, as Bondrewd says, a prayer cannot be born from one who only knows of joy.
Whoa, based.
And once again, thank you to Fume.
Oh, that's so dark. What the fuck? This is such a good video. I really like this. Everything he does is fucking top notch. This guy's a top notch YouTuber.
For sponsoring today's video.
There you go. Look at the people who sponsored it. All big dick energy. Dude, what a journey we went on, boys and girls. What a fucking amazing video. It's deserved all 1.5 million views. It deserved all of it, dude. This was glorious. This is absolutely insane. Insanely good. This is a top tier video. I was gonna do a little more tonight, but I think that's such a perfect one to end on. I think anybody who's watching this later and they're here right now with me, I want you to know we went on a journey together. We went on a journey of children being used as Energizer batteries. We went on a journey of pain and suffering, and you need to like and subscribe, baby. You need to put some comments down there to understand the true pain of what we are now feeling, where that girl cannot watch